Before we get started on today's video, I just want to apologize for the video being so late. I had an extremely busy weekend this weekend. I just didn't have time to do the video and get it finished on time, but I appreciate you guys watching anyway and enjoy the video. If your adventuring party is ever unlucky enough to traverse the plane of the abyss, pray that you don't fall into the domain of this fleshy monstrosity. Today we are talking about the Sibriex. Hello and welcome to Dungeon Deep Dive, where we talk about all things D&D, from monsters and their lore to new updates and tips and advice for anyone interested in Dungeons and Dragons and want to give it a try. Today we are talking about the absolutely horrific monster that gives even the bravest of adventurers a run for their money. The Sibriex is a 15-foot tall ball of just flesh and gnashing teeth that reeks of rotten vegetation and constantly exudes streams of blood and bile from its questionable body. Originating from the plane of the abyss, this creature first appeared in the 3.5 D&D book Fiendish Codex 1 Hordes of the Abyss, released on June the 13th, 2006 by Ed Shark, James Jacobs and Eric Mona. This book, similar to the Fiend Folio, is an accessory to the 3rd edition and gives you everything you need to run an adventure or campaign through the abyss, from information about the plane itself to the lore on the demon lords that rule over the plane, descriptions of each of the layers of the abyss, and a wide range of monsters that you can use that live in the abyss itself. Even though these huge fiends are just mounds of flesh and sacks of hit points, they are also extremely clever and cunning. Originally, they began as some eldritch horrors called Oberiths, an eldritch horror so old that they even predated the gods themselves. Just the mere presence of these creatures will drive any mortal insane within an instant. Now malformed and twisted with their obsession with manipulating flesh and combining it with pure abyssal matter, they were mutated into what we see today. No one really knows how the Sibriex's thought process goes, only that they see all of the lesser beings to them as material for them to manipulate and gain more power and strength. Being a being of pure selfish nature, over the eons of their existence they have collected information and items from the vast multiverse, only to hoard it for themselves to help them grow their own power. There have been records of Sibriexes to work and counsel with other creatures from the abyss for a price of knowledge, gold, or magical items that they would decorate their lairs with and hand out to their many mind-controlled servants to help do their bidding. Even demon lords have been known to seek out the guidance of Sibriexes to help bolster their armies with mutated soldiers of bulging flesh and dark abyssal energy, but also to act as advisors or oracles to the demon lords because of their mass amounts of knowledge. Any creature that would take a Sibriex under its wing will be given the impression that they are the master and it their servant, but over time the Sibriex would, with its innate charm, monster and feeble-mind abilities, be able to convert and flip the tables where they would become the master and the previous master would then become the servant. Sibriexes, even with their high intelligence and knowledge, tend to stay away from any politics that would happen in the abyss. Instead, they would isolate themselves in their lairs, which were either long abandoned fortresses or unclaimed areas of the abyss that no demon lords claimed yet, that they then could bend and shift the world around them to their will to make it to their liking. Once they would find a place that they can call home, they would manipulate monsters and other demons and graft them and mutate them into becoming minions for themselves. They would amass numerous creatures and form armies of lesser demons and other manipulated monsters so that it could put its full focus into strengthening its position in the abyss. With the Sibriexes being as old as they are, there aren't that many known to exist in the abyss itself. Some say that there's only one Sibriex to every layer of the abyss, except for one layer that is said to hold quite a few. In the vast oceans of the gaping maw on the 88th layer of the abyss sits the Scabwash Sentinels, a laboratory that sits on an island of two huge jagged spire-like rocks which houses five ancient Sibriexes. On this entire island sits just a wasteland of flesh and masses of refuse that oozes and pusses that seeps into the sea surrounding the island from their failed experiments. You can also imagine with this amount of flesh in there is going to be numerous like mutated and malformed demons and just other creatures on there that's going to be keeping them safe. With the Sibriexes being of a malformed eldritch horror, not only does the presence of the Sibriex warp and twist the mind of any mortal creature it deems below it, which is practically everything, but can also warp the very reality and bodies of anyone who is foolish enough to come into contact with this creature. With enough concentration on its abyssal powers, the Sibriex can create legions and legions of demons to defend them, called Rutikin. Rutikin are warped manifestations of Tanari, I think I'm saying that right, that the Sibriex creates and are among the weakest of the demons. These guys on their own are not much of trouble, especially for anyone that's traveling into the abyss. You're going to be relatively high level, so these aren't going to be much trouble. But with the Sibriexes creating armies and legions, there is going to be a lot of these, so these guys can easily overrun and quickly overpower you, so be careful. Similar to a beholder, their bodies are quite buoyant and able to float. Even though they can float, they do have chains attached and wrapped around their bodies, and they use their telekinesis abilities to manipulate the chains and use them as legs to walk around or as weapons to attack and lash out at anything that gets too close to them. Even though with the mutated form of the Sibriex and the many mouths that they have grafted onto their body, the way they feed is through an amalgamation of feeding tubes that dangle from the bottom of the creature. These tubes can also spit out a highly acidic black bile that will liquefy anything that comes into contact with it. So I'm assuming they liquefy the creature and then they suck it up. Venturing into the abyss on its own is a challenge that most people will straight up just refuse to take. The plane is an infinite amount of layers with maddening winds that sound like constant screams and wails of damned souls that never ends, and endless tunnels where no light can pierce, and where even the most keen of mind and memory will lose their way and forever be lost in the labyrinths of the abyss. Not to mention the countless demons that call this place their home, like the Aboleth, the Abyssal Chicken, the Maw Demon, the Howler, the Succubus, the Udark, and many, many more. If you are ever unlucky enough to encounter a Sibriex, pray that you're not alone and that you have a strong will and even stronger party behind you, because these guys are not to be taken lightly. Sitting at a challenge rating of 18 with an armor class of 19 and a chunky 150 hit points, these things can take a hit but also wear you down if you're not careful enough. They are naturally resistant to cold, fire, lightning, bludgeoning, piercing and slashing damage from non-magical weapons, as well as being immune to poison and the poison condition. With an intellect of 27, these guys don't attack head first with brute force. They try to use the battlefield and their abilities to their advantage and exhaust all the abilities at your disposal before bending you to their will and grafting you into a new project. They have an innate ability called contamination, where the creature emits an aura of corruption 30 feet in all directions. The ground and any plants in the area wither and die and become a rough terrain for any other creatures. And any creature that starts their turn in that aura must make a DC 20 Constitution saving throw or take 4d6 poison damage. If you're lucky enough to succeed on the saving throw, you are immune to contamination for 24 hours. It can also cast spells. It can cast Charm Person, Command, Dispel, and Hold Person at will, as well as Feeble Mind 3 times a day. And not only that, it has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. But easily, by far, the most devastating ability it has is its Warp Creature ability. The Sibriex can target up to 3 creatures it can see within 120 feet of it, then each target must make a DC 20 Constitution saving throw. On a successful save, a creature becomes immune to the Warp Creature effect, but on a failed save, the creature is poisoned, which causes it to also gain 1 level of exhaustion. While poisoned in this way, the target must repeat the saving throw at the start of each of its turns. 3 successes means the poison ends and you lose the exhaustion points, but each failed save causes the target to suffer another level of exhaustion, and once the target reaches 6 levels of exhaustion, it dies and instantly transforms into a living abyssal wretch under the Sibriex's control, and the transformation of the body can only be undone by a wish spell. So make sure you don't get those 6 exhaustion points. And on top of that, the ability can also be used as a legendary action at 2 action points. And on top of all that, it has a Bile Spit ability that can deal up to 10d6 acid damage on a failed 20 dex save.
But wait, there's more.
It also has a multi-attack of its chains and bite, with its chains dealing 2d12 plus 7 piercing, and its bite dealing 2d8 piercing and 2d8 acid damage. And also not to mention the endless amount of minions and demons that will he'll have defending it at all costs. So you better be ready because it's going to be one hell of a fight. But if you do end up defeating one of these creatures, first off, well done, because that is a feat in its own. But you will be heavily rewarded with the amount of gold and treasure that they will have, because no doubt their lair will have endless amount of magical items, treasures, scrolls, you name it, they're going to have it. With all this reading about the Sibriex has been fascinating, and I feel like the creature would be great for a near-end campaign fight, or even a big bad evil guy of the campaign itself. You could change it up a little bit. It's like with a Sibriex being so old that it's malformed itself, armored itself up, imbued itself with magical weapons to give it more abilities. You could change this up however you want. Maybe a Sibriex have managed to escape into the material plane through a portal and been slowly over the years building an army of mutated and malformed monsters that's been terrorizing the land. Or maybe it developed a following of cultists that worshipped it as a god and wanted the, quotations, blessing to be transformed and ascended into a higher form. Or you could even have a high level wizard that has summoned a Sibriex thinking it could control it and use its powers for their own need. But actually the Sibriex was the one that ended up controlling him and transformed him into one of the creatures that it controls. And now the Sibriex has the wizard's tower and all his magical items and all his knowledge just sitting there for its new lair. I kind of like that last one more, purely because if it's an isolated wizard that lives in his tower on his own, no one's going to know about it. So it's just going to sit there, gather all that information and just become stronger and stronger without no one knowing any different. And that is all for you guys today that I have on the Sibriex. Thank you all for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and if there's anything about the Sibriex that I've missed that you guys want to add, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I will always be reading those. I'll also leave links to all the websites I've used in my research down below, so be sure to check them out. What monsters do you think I should do next? Let me know in the comments below and I will add the comment at the end of the video. I know this one has come out later than it should have, so I know the time frame between this one and next video is going to be a bit shorter, but I will do my best to get one out for you on Monday. You can find links to all my socials down below to keep you updated on the videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.